For the first part of the assignment, you're going to need to download these two documents. They're on Canvas. So once you've got those, and go, you can pause the video if you need to go download them, and then you can work on them at the same time as you're listening to me. So this first document is our planning document. So you're going to be making a model of the Isle Royale ecosystem. And a model is a little bit more complex than a food web. In a food web, we're just showing predator-prey relationships. And in a model, we're showing a lot more than that. So we need to have some planning that's done ahead of time. So when you get to your model part, you'll know what you're supposed to be connecting with all your arrows and lines. So Isle Royale actually is a pretty complex ecosystem, and we're going to have to limit it a little bit because otherwise your model would be crazy. So just so you know that this isn't everything that's on Isle Royale. It actually has way more than this. But I've picked kind of just a nice distribution of the organisms that exist there so that we can look at the ecosystem as a whole and as a large before we focus in on our wolf index. So what you're going to be doing here is just collecting some information. So the reason that I gave you this handout here is because, once again, it's a pretty crazy ecosystem. And if you go out and do Google searches and things like that, then you're not going to find necessarily what you need to find, or you're going to find way more than you need to find, which would make it a little bit more complicated for you. So you can do this by hand if you want. You can print it out and you can take your picture of it. When we get to the next part, though, I really encourage you to do it on the computer, and I'll explain why that is in the next video. So in this first part, we're going to do the balsam fir together, just so you can kind of get a feel for what we're doing. So it's similar to what you did with the Arizona Food Web, just with a little bit of stuff thrown in. So we're going to come back to trophic level here in just a second, and we're going to focus on the what does it eat and what eats it. So the balsam fir, obviously, it's a tree. It doesn't eat anything. But where does it get its energy from? It gets its energy from the sun. And so in our box here, we would say that the energy comes from the sun. And then what eats it? Well, the moose eats it. Now, you might find that as you go through, that there might be a couple of added things that you have to come back and add in, because maybe it's listed here under habitat, and you go to that critter and you find out, well, it actually lives in it and it eats it. So you might have to fill in a little bit as you go along. So and over here, then what is it habitat for? It's habitat for the red squirrel, the pileated woodpecker. And if some of these things, if you don't know what they are, when you get to that organisms page, you'll see pictures of it. So you'll have a little bit better understanding of what something looks like. So for example, the black-throated warbler, if you're not familiar with that, it's a bird. You'll be able to see a picture of it. So when we look at trophic levels, now we're talking about producer, first level consumer, second level consumer, and third level consumer. So the balsam fir is a plant, which means it is a producer. So you're going to go through all of the different organisms just like this. But I want to show you, for example, we're going to go see the we have pictures of all of our little critters, all of them big critters. Here's our black-throated warbler, not that one, our woodpecker. Okay, it was our squirrel. So here's our squirrel. And on here it says, what does the squirrel eat? Well, it eats the fur also. So this is what I was talking about, where you might have to come back and say, okay, well, the squirrel also eats the balsam fir, so I'm going to have to add that in here. So red squirrel both lives on it and eats it. And that's going to be important in the next piece when you're making your model. So you'll continue on and you'll do this for your entire sheet. So you've got 2 pages here of critters that you're going to be looking at. And you'll see that it might move it around a little bit, that's fine. Not a big deal. You're going to be turning it electronically, so it doesn't really matter how many. If you are writing by hand, just know that you might be putting a lot of things in the boxes. So before you print it out, you might want to space it out a little bit to give yourself spaces to write.